The Georgia sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose, when Major General Camille Jordan eased her rental car onto the quiet back roads of Masonville. The two-lane highway shimmered with late-day heat, but Camille barely noticed. Her thoughts were elsewhere, on her niece's graduation gown, the scent of her sister's cornbread, the piano in the living room that still held the echo of childhood scales. After 27 years in uniform, Camille had been to more countries than she could count, commanded troops through deserts, jungles, and war zones. Yet nothing, absolutely nothing, felt more foreign than the place she once called home. Masonville hadn't changed much, but she had. In jeans and a crest white blouse, her presence was understated, deceptively so. The three silver stars she had earned with grit and blood were tucked away in a side pocket of her duffel bag, replaced on this evening by something far more subtle. The quiet, poised strength of a woman who knew exactly who she was and who no longer needed to prove it. When she pulled into her sister's gravel driveway, the past seemed to rise from the porch. Screen door creaking, hydrangeas blooming too early, wind chimes whispering memories. Before she could even step out of the car, the front door swung wide open. "Camille!" Tanya came rushing down the steps, arms open, smile wide and wet with unshed tears. "You made it." They embraced as if the world had tried to keep them apart, and perhaps it had. "I wouldn't miss Kayla's graduation for anything," Camille said, her voice soft, textured with warmth. "You know that." From the doorway, a 17-year-old in an oversized hoodie and Nike slides peeked out, trying and failing to play it cool. "Auntie C," Kayla called, bounding into the yard. Camille dropped her duffel and caught her in a full hug. "There's my future attorney general. Ready to walk that stage tomorrow?" Kayla nodded. "Especially now that you're here." Inside, everything was as she remembered. The smell of sweet corn and paprika hung in the air. Family photos, some with Camille in uniform, some without, lined the mantel. The piano, silent in the corner, had aged better than she expected. Later, as the night air settled in and laughter faded into quieter conversation, Kayla groaned. "Oh no, I forgot to pick up my cap and gown." Camille glanced at the clock. "Still open?" "They close in 45 minutes. It's Ferguson's on Miller Road. But it's okay, I'll figure it out in the morning." Camille was already on her feet, grabbing her keys. "Not a chance. I've dealt with supply drops in Kabul with worse timelines." "Are you sure?" Tanya asked. "I could use a drive," Camille smiled. "And besides, can't let my favorite girl show up underdressed to her big day." The drive felt almost meditative. She passed her old high school, still painted in chip blue. The Baptist church where she'd been baptized still had its same leaning signpost. Time seemed to move more slowly here, as if Masonville didn't care much for change. She reached Ferguson's with minutes to spare. Mrs. Ferguson, still sharp as a tack, lit up when she recognized Camille. "Your mama would have been proud, you know," the old woman said, handing over the garment bag. Camille smiled politely. "I hope so." On her way back, she chose the scenic route, past open fields and creaking farmhouses, past the stretch of road where kids used to ride bikes and dream of bigger lives. It was peaceful. Too peaceful. That's when she noticed the headlights. A police cruiser had merged in behind her. No sirens. No overt urgency, just close enough to unsettle. Camille checked her speed, 48 in a 50 zone. She sat up a little straighter, adjusted her mirrors. Her body moved instinctively, as if switching from civilian to active awareness. 1 mile passed, then 2, and then blue lights. They pierced the dusk like a blade. Camille pulled over calmly. No sudden movements. Hands at 10 and 2. She rolled the window down and waited. Her mind wasn't racing, it was calculating. The war zones had taught her many things. Chief among them, Danger didn't always announce itself with shouting. Sometimes it whispered through polite commands and practiced smiles. Sometimes it wore a badge. The flashlight beam struck her eyes like an accusation. "Step out of the vehicle!" the officer barked, tone-clipped and devoid of courtesy. Camille turned slowly. Officer Brett Carver, white, mid-50s, heavy-set, with the look of a man used to being obeyed, was already at her window. His partner, Officer Mitch Harlan, younger and visibly less certain, lingered behind him, hand nervously grazing his belt. "Good evening, officer," Camille said calmly, both hands visible on the steering wheel. "May I ask the reason for this stop?" Carver didn't answer. Instead, he pressed. "I said out of the vehicle. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The words were drenched in threat. Camille's voice remained even. "Sir, I'm not resisting, but I do have a right to know why I'm being turned over. I've done nothing wrong, and I'm fully prepared to present documentation." Carver gave a dry chuckle, laced with scorn. "We've got a bolo out for a stolen silver sedan driven by a black female. That match your profile, ma'am?" The weight of his words didn't surprise her. Wid was how casually they landed. "This is a rental," she replied, still calm. "My name is Camille Jordan. I have my license, military ID, and rental agreement. I'd like to reach into my bag and—" "Real slow," Carver interrupted, his flashlight fixed on her face, his other hand resting on his holster. "And keep your hands where I can see 'em." She moved deliberately, retrieving her documents and passing them through the window. Harlan glanced at them briefly. "Says she's military." Carver sneered. "Ooh, does it now? What's this, Major General? You expect us to believe that?" Camille didn't flinch. "Yes, that's exactly what I expect." Carver leaned in. "General Beyonce, huh? That's cute. Step out, now." She complied, not because she feared them, but because she understood how quickly situations like this escalated for people who looked like her. As she stood by the car, Carver's hands snapped metal cuffs around her wrists. "This is completely unnecessary," she said, still composed, still poised. "Yeah, well, better safe than sorry," he replied, relishing every click of the cuffs. "You can explain your little cosplay at the station." Across the road, partially concealed behind a row of hedges, Jamal Hayes had frozen mid-step. He had just finished his shift at the gas station and was walking home when he heard the voices. What he saw made his stomach knot. A black woman, maybe in her 50s, was being cuffed and mocked by two officers in the dark. She wasn't yelling, she wasn't resisting, but they were treating her like a threat. Jamal didn't know who she was, but he knew what he was seeing. He pulled out his phone and began recording, hands trembling. Carver's head snapped around at the faint glow. "Hey, you! What do you think you're doing?" "I'm just walking home," Jamal called back. "Come over here." Jamal hesitated, then approached cautiously. "I wasn't doing anything wrong. I just saw—" Before he could finish, Carver grabbed the phone from his hand. "You recording us?" Carver demanded. "That's my right." The phone hit the pavement with a crunch. Carver ground it under his boot with deliberate force. "Oops," he said with a crooked grin. "Guess accidents happen." Jamal looked at the shattered screen, then back at the woman being pushed into the back of the cruiser. Their eyes met. Hers didn't plead. They commanded, "Remember this," he nodded. As the door shut on Camille Jordan, her fingers twisted ever so slightly, pressing the emergency signal on the inside of her military-grade smartwatch. At the Pentagon, 700 miles away, a shrill alert pierced the silence of the communication center. Code Black, high-ranking officer, emergency detention, Georgia region. Colonel Serena Wu didn't hesitate. "Get me General Marcus Reeve, now." The chain of command had been activated. But what no one in Masonville understood, not the officers, not the police chief, not the corrupt network watching from the shadows, was that this arrest was about to detonate something far larger than a traffic stop. And Camille Jordan, the woman they tried to reduce to a cliché, was about to become a symbol no one could silence. The ride to the Masonville police station was quiet. No insults, no threats, just the cold, metallic indifference of power misused. The kind that doesn't shout because it assumes no one will dare to question it. Camille stared out the cruiser window, watching the streets of her hometown pass in reverse. Each landmark, the library, the football field, the diner with the crooked sign, blurred into something unfamiliar. Places she'd once loved now looked alien under the fluorescent wash of injustice. She had served her country through hell and the desert. She had patched up soldiers under sniper fire, coordinated airstrikes in blackout zones, and negotiated ceasefires with warlords. But now, cuffed in the back of a patrol car, she realized something terrifying. She had never felt so violated on American soil. At the Pentagon, General Marcus Reeve was halfway through a late-night intel brief when Colonel Serena Wu burst into the room. "Sir, we've received a code black," she said, urgency clipped and controlled. "Lieutenant General Camille Jordan, the signal originated in Masonville, Georgia. It's confirmed." Reeves' pen froze mid-sentence. Camille Jordan. The name wasn't just familiar, it was sacred. She had pulled him from a burning Humvee in Kandahar, carried him 3 miles to the extraction point with a shattered leg and enemy fire licking at their heels. And now, what? "She's in custody?" he asked sharply. "Likely under duress. The signal cut off mid-transmission. No booking records yet. Civilian law enforcement may be sitting on it." Reeves stood. "Prep a jet. I want eyes on Masonville, and I want every scrap of data, public, private, classified, on whoever laid hands on her." Back in Masonville, Officer Tiana Brooks had just finished filing a property log when she overheard the chuckling. Carver and Harlan stood in the break room, sipping lukewarm coffee, surrounded by a few other off-duty officers. The tone was light, too light. "You should have seen her face," Carver said, clearly basking in the memory. "Standing there like she was royalty or something. Had some story about being a general. Can you believe that?" "She had military tattoos," Tiana offered cautiously, approaching the doorway. "The real kind. I saw a Special Forces crest. Ranger tab, not the fake stuff." Carver scoffed. "You think someone like her is a real general?" Tiana bristled. Her paperwork checked out. "You think that matters?" he said, eyes narrowing. "Sometimes people need a reminder of who's really in charge." The room fell awkwardly silent. No one corrected him, but no one agreed either. That silence said more than words ever could. Across town, Jamal's friend Marcus was hunched over a cracked laptop in his bedroom. The memory card from the smashed phone blinked green in a tiny reader beside him. "Come on, baby," he muttered, typing fast. Then it hit, the footage, grainy but clear. Camille Jordan standing beside her car, hands raised, calm and cooperative. Carver sneers, the cuffs, the slammed door, and the moment he crushed Jamal's phone. Marcus uploaded the video to Twitter with a simple caption, "Hashtag General in cuffs. Masonville PD just arrested a U.S. Army officer like a common criminal. Share this. Don't let it disappear." Within minutes, the clip began spreading. TikTok, Reddit, Instagram. Then it hit X, formerly Twitter, like a flash flood. The name Camille Jordan began trending long before most people even knew who she was. At the Masonville police station, Camille was processed like any other suspect. Her ID was glanced at, her fingerprints were taken, a mugshot snapped. "Charge?" the desk sergeant asked lazily. "Vehicle theft, resisting, suspicion of impersonating an officer," Carver answered. Camille said nothing. She knew the truth. She also knew that somewhere, someone had heard her signal. In her holding cell, bare bench, peeling paint, the scent of bleach and neglect, Camille sat upright, hands clasped, breath steady. She wasn't afraid. She was waiting. Thousands of miles away, inside a secure military base, Major Owen Pierce, Camille's former intel officer and the man she once shielded from a roadside blast, was racing through encrypted channels. "There's a no booking on the public record," he told Reeve via secure link, "which means they're either hiding her arrest or that the system's been scrubbed. Can you confirm she's still in custody?" "I've accessed DoD satellite imagery. Her rental car's in the lot outside the Masonville PD. She's there." "Condition?" "No visual. But, sir, she activated Code Black. That tells us everything we need to know." Reeve leaned forward, jaw clenched. "Then it's time we reminded a few people what happens when they put their hands on a United States general." By dawn, the story had erupted like wildfire. General in cuffs wasn't just a hashtag anymore. It was a lightning rod. Thousands of reposts. News anchors are scrambling for background. Military personnel are posting old photos of Camille Jordan, speaking of her valor, her leadership, and her sacrifice. One combat medic tweeted, "She once stood between us and mortar fire so we could evacuate the wounded. Now she's in handcuffs in some dusty precinct. Not on my watch." The story had reached America's living rooms. But in Masonville, inside the narrow, flickering hallways of the police station, a battle of silence and whispers was brewing. Officer Tiana Brooks paced outside the holding cells, gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles ached. The tension in the air was suffocating. Carver strutted through the station like a man untouchable. Harlan, his partner, looked haunted, with sunken eyes and clenched jaw. He hadn't said a word since processing Camille hours ago. Something was wrong, and Tiana felt it in her bones. She waited until the hallway was clear, then slipped past the cells. Through the narrow, reinforced window, she saw her. Camille Jordan sat still, upright, unmoved by the grimy surroundings. Even behind bars, she looked like she was in command. Their eyes met. There was no pleading in Camille's expression, just clarity, as if she already knew what needed to happen. And that burden somehow was being passed to Tiana. That night, after her shift, Tiana made a choice. She sent an encrypted audio file and scanned documents to an old college friend, Sarah Williams, now a journalist for the Atlanta Constitution. The email was simple. "You need to hear this. People need to know what's happening." Attached were secretly recorded conversations from inside the department. Carver, "Some people need to be reminded they're not above the law just because they wear fancy uniforms or got shiny medals. I don't care what she says she is. We don't bow to that." And worse, "The chief's with us. She knows we're doing God's work here." Tiana felt sick replaying it, but she knew what she had to do. Across the country, Owen Pierce was following a different thread. His cybersecurity team had uncovered that the entire server of the Masonville PD had been wiped clean. Not just booking logs, all footage. Body cams, dash cams, intake cameras, gone. This wasn't incompetence, Owen told General Reeve via secure link. This was a cover-up, deliberate, professional, and fast. Worse yet, background checks on Carver revealed a troubling digital footprint. Frequent posts in extremist law enforcement forums, coded language, and affiliations with a group known as Iron Shield. "What's Iron Shield, Reeve asked, already suspecting the answer. "A loosely organized network of officers and ex-military who believe in preserving traditional order. White nationalism wrapped in patriotic language. They trade arrest strategies, coordinate pressure campaigns on progressive leaders, and they've been watching Camille for months." "How do we know that?" "We found browser metadata and image logs." Carver knew Camille was coming. He'd been searching her family name weeks before the stop. Reeve went still. The weight of what this meant sank in. This wasn't a mistake, Owen said grimly. It was a setup. Meanwhile, Dominic Price, the civil rights attorney Camille had quietly contacted after her release, was mobilizing. His office buzzed with energy. Interns fielded media requests. Staff combed through public records and prior complaints against the Masonville PD. 17 cases, he told Camille over the phone, all involving black residents, all mysteriously dropped or resolved quietly. And guess whose name shows up in every one? Carver, Camille said without missing a beat. Price nodded. I've seen bad patterns before, General, but this is institutional rot, and it goes beyond one precinct. Camille paused, then said calmly, then we burn it out by the root. Later that evening, Camille stood in her sister Tanya's kitchen, arms folded, watching Kayla scroll through viral posts. You're trending, Kayla whispered. You're all over everything. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. They're calling you a hero. Camille gave a small, tired smile. That's not why I came home. I know, Kayla said softly. But maybe this is bigger than us. Camille looked out the window into the dusk. Her war wasn't over. It had just moved theaters. And this time the battlefield wasn't overseas. It was right here on the sidewalks of Masonville, in courtrooms and newsrooms, in inboxes and encrypted hard drives. They had tried to strip her of dignity. Instead, they'd given her a mission. And Major General Camille Jordan never failed a mission. The federal courthouse in Atlanta had seen high-profile trials before, but never one quite like this. Outside, a sea of protesters and supporters filled the steps. Reporters jostled for space as camera lenses fixed on the woman at the center of it all. Not a defendant, not a politician, not a celebrity, a soldier. Major General Camille Jordan walked through the courthouse doors in full-dress blues, her medals catching the morning sun like tiny mirrors. She carried herself with the same calm authority she'd shown the night they tried to break her. Only no matter the world was watching. Inside, the courtroom was tense. Civil rights attorney Dominic Price stood before the jury and presented the evidence. Body cam records that had disappeared, reassembled from cloud backups, anonymous emails, whistleblower testimony, and most damning of all, a leaked recording of Chief Regina Voss, Masonville's police chief, saying that that woman thought her stars meant something here. Well, they don't, not in my town. The jury heard it, America heard it. One by one, the pieces fell into place. Officer Brett Carver, charged with abuse of power and civil rights violations. Chief Voss, exposed as a key player in a regional network of suppression and cover-ups tied to federal grant money and private contractor kickbacks. Senator Roland Wexley, linked to Iron Shield, is funneling money to police departments aligned with extremist ideologies. But it was Tiana Brooks, the rookie officer who defied her badge to uphold her oath, whose testimony shifted the emotional weight of the trial. I didn't join the police to be silent, she said on the stand. General Jordan showed me that real service means standing for something, even when it costs you everything. The courtroom fell still, and then Ray Mitchum, a disgraced former officer from a neighboring county, took the stand under immunity. His confession, coached by federal investigators, unraveled the final thread. They told us she needed to be reminded where she stood, that she was part of the problem. I thought I was doing my job, but I was wrong. We all were. The verdict came swiftly, guilty on all major charges. Camille didn't cheer, she didn't cry, she simply nodded once. Justice wasn't a celebration, it was a correction. 2 months later, the Jordan Brooks Act passed both houses of Congress, establishing mandatory bias screening for law enforcement, enhanced protections for whistleblowers, and oversight over local departments that receive federal military surplus equipment. At the White House signing ceremony, Camille stood behind the president. She wore her uniform one last time. This would be her final public appearance before retirement. She spent her last official morning as a general at West Point, addressing the graduating class of young cadets. Her voice carried firm and unwavering. Real patriotism isn't about flags or slogans. It's about standing for the values that make this country worth defending, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's dangerous. If your loyalty is to justice, then you will never be lost. You will never be alone. Camille returned home to Masonville not as a victim, not as a headline, but as a catalyst. The police station where she was once humiliated had been shut down. In its place, a civil rights education center, where her mugshot now hung beside her official military portrait, a reminder of how quickly freedom can be threatened and how fiercely it must be defended. Final message. True strength isn't shown on battlefields. It's proven when you stand alone, in silence, for what's right. Justice begins not with power, but with courage.